Good day, everyone. Welcome to this important online event with participants from GFT and CloudFrame. I want to welcome all of those that are attending. Joining us today on the call, we have several presenters, and we'll go through this. We'll start with Alpesh Taylor, who is the Group Head of Banking and Solutions for GFT, and Pedro Bequer, who's the VP of Sales for CloudFrame. They're going to take us through the initiation of the partnership between the two organizations, GFT and CloudFrame. So without any further ado, gentlemen, I'll hand it over to you and let's talk about the partnership and how it came about.
Thank you, David. Thank you for hosting the webinar today and for having GFT participate. I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to all the guests that are listening today. Hopefully we get a good discussion and some Q&A going as well. As David said, introducing myself, my name is Alpesh Taylor. I am the group-wide business development leader across our digital banking and cloud units, and have been with GFT since 2007. Pedro, do you want to announce yourself, and then we can perhaps talk about the partnership in a little bit more detail?
Certainly. My name is Pedro Bequer. I'm the Vice President of Sales for CloudFrame, and I've been with CloudFrame for just about 3 years now. I think the partnership evolved from a vision that Alpesh and I had about giving customers a lower cost, lower risk option with greater certainty for modernizing their COBOL mainframe workloads. And when we look at when we, CloudFrame, looked at the marketplace and looked for world-class leaders for the delivery of services, GFT rose to the top. And so we were very excited about forming this joint partnership in which we specialize in the automation and GFT specializes in the service delivery, which gives customers just a tremendous advantage to deliver business value much faster than any other solutions in the marketplace. Alpesh?
And let me just touch upon that delivery angle you've mentioned, Pedro. You're right. Two years ago, I think it was December 2021, when you and I got together and really started to discuss the vision of both organizations. And I think I made it abundantly clear, and it's been crystal since. GFT have been delivering technology services to our customers for over 35 years. We're a mid-sized systems integrator with global scale. We operate in 15 markets with close client proximity and high-touch digital hubs across the world. And we've been solving our customer challenges, as I said, over 35 years. And those challenges have been primarily anchored on the necessity to transform, the necessity to move the dial from an innovation standpoint, and also the necessity of adopting modern technologies. And as a firm, we are very engineering focused. And when you and I, Pedro, came together in 2001, and you explained to me the philosophy and the nature of the products that CloudFrame have got, it was a hand-in-glove fit between the engineering focused firm that we are, with domain context across banking, insurance, and industry, and the problem that you're solving with your tools for what is, we refer to it as legacy technology, but actually attending a session recently where somebody on stage actually called this technology legendary technology. What we're solving is, taking this legendary technology of COBOL, which has been in place for many, many years, which is, kind of served with hundreds of billions of lines of code that are being used across the industry, handling, daily commerce and transactional services for banks. We're taking this legendary technology on one side and, modernizing its functionality on the other side. And that's where I think, the combination of GFT CloudFrame really works well, and the strengths of our organizations really do play out. This partnership for me is not just a paper-based partnership. It wasn't, 2 years have gone. It wasn't just a paper-based partnership. It's a partnership that's built on agreeing the right sentiment of partnership. It's been built on learning about your technology and our engineers really, really embracing it. But more importantly, it's about the application of that technology. I know we'll come on to that later on, but the application to real customers, joint customers who have now seen the actual benefit of what this collaboration has really brought to them. So I'm super excited. I'm really, really pumped about what we're going to do in the future. And really looking forward to hearing from our experts on this call today about some of those real world use cases as well.
Great. Thank you very much for going through that, gentlemen. I know that the customer is really the focus of our partnership, and maybe we can spend a minute and get a little bit of your observations from talking to IT leaders and CIOs and business leaders about the challenges that they're facing around these, what Alpesh has termed the legendary applications that they have. I love that term. We hear a lot of things around cost and around innovation and around competition and the struggles that they have supporting these environments. Maybe you can give us a little bit of the observations that you've heard or experienced in the last few years around that.
Sure. I'll go first and Pedro, you kick in. It's all of the above, David. When we look at technology, we have to look at it in through many different lenses. The influx of cloud technologies over the past 5, 6, 7 years now in industry has been a game changer for the way in which our customers think, in the way in which the cultures of the organizations we're working within have adapted and continue to adapt. And when you're talking about creating business value, it's not just with one technology you create business value. There is a plethora of technologies that are integrated to create the end-to-end solution and therefore the end-to-end customer journey. And when you put all those things together, our customers are really telling us, today and for many years now, that yes, they for sure struggle with labor markets and skill sets that are becoming harder to retain. And certainly when we talk about legendary technology that has been in place for over 25 years, there is an absolute reality that some of these skilled individuals and people are retiring, are moving on, and organizations have an operational and a technology risk to manage as a consequence of it. So we hear about the skill angle, and that's something which we definitely a bridge for our customers. We have many individuals and employees in our organization who understand this legendary technology and understand modern technology, and we've used those two things together. Competition, market forces, the volatility in markets are causing these technologies also to be push the limits, and those limits are burdenous for our customers. So they're also asking us for ways in which architectures can be redesigned, elastic computing can be introduced, and scalability can be embedded into the way these technologies are fused together. So that also drives with it the conversation around mainframes, and tackling that part of the technology estate as part of a wider digital strategy is something that we see. And then lastly, it's also about optionality. Customers want options. These technologies they're using have been in use for many, many years, and perhaps there are contracts that are coming end of life, and they're looking for options out there. So they turn to organizations like GFT to help provide them with options. And obviously for GFT, working with partners like CloudFrame, it's an easy conversation for us to go to the customers and give them a legitimate option that will save them money and will help them transform and will solve some of those inherent long-term people issues that they're facing as well.
Great.
Pedro?
Pedro, you got anything to add to that?
Sure. I'd just like to re-emphasize a couple of points that Alpesh mentioned that we see in many of our discussions with senior leaders. Optionality or options is always something that customers are considering, and those options have a direct impact on cost. And so there hasn't been a single organization that we've had a conversation with that doesn't have some initiative in terms of lowering the cost on the mainframe. And so, GFT and CloudFrame, with our ability to, with the products that we'll talk about a little later, have the ability to directly impact those costs in a very rapid kind of deployment in which we deliver business value. And so, again, the last thing that I would mention, which is pushing people down this path, is really the resource constraints that we see fairly frequently, which everyone is addressing. And so, but the key driver really of what we've seen, which is pushing people into modernization, is really addressing mainframe cost as a whole.
Yeah, good. Those are interesting and driving choices that people are making. And when we say options, I always think about, the worst situation in the world is not having any choices. And so I think that is something that we bring to, our customers, is having that ability to make decisions and make strategic approaches to what they're going to do with their legacy applications. So that's great. I think, we had the chance here to talk about why we've formed in this partnership, that it's deep. So the roots have been put in place and have grown and have substantiated this partnership, and it has support, from company wide. We've updated our digital assets to include, positions for both of our CEOs, the GFT CEO here, pledging, support to this partnership, and likewise, the CEO of CloudFrame, positioning, us as supporting GFT and GFT supporting us to the benefit of our customers. And so I think that's a great pledge for both companies to go forward. As we look at that, I know that we've been through several projects, and what I wanted to do here is maybe spend 10 minutes with our field sales director, George, to kind of talk about what we've been doing together, not just why we're doing this, but actually talking about the real world examples of the solutions that we're building. And so we're going to go through real quickly, I think 8 or 9 minutes of kind of a background of what we mean by shifting COBOL compute and how we bring that to life at customers. And so, George, if you will, take us through a little bit of, what this solution brings to customers, why we're doing it, and the technology that we're using to apply this at our customers. I'll be guiding the slide, George, so just let me know when you want me to progress to the next one.
Thank you very much, David. So yes, can you hear me well?
Yes, got you.
Okay. So as you were saying, this is basically what we've been helping customers to what is called shift COBOL compute or shift compute. And what I'm going to do is explain what is that and how it works, and how we've been making this and applying it to some customers together, and what is the best path to follow to get to success here. Okay, so if you can please take to the next slide. So basically, first the definition. What is COBOL compute? Well, shift COBOL compute. Shifting, it's about moving your execution from one platform to another. And as Pedro was mentioning, we have a solution that automates the process of shifting the COBOL compute, and then GFT is helping us with implementation of the solution. Solution is called Relocate, and it's meant to minimize the impact on the process and to maximize the utilization of the resources within the mainframe. It is a fully automated solution, and it's not a lift and shift project. It's basically based on cross-compile. Cross-compile in a word means you develop in your original language, but you run as a different language, which in this case, you develop in COBOL, but you run as Java. Why do we need to do that? Because of the costs, okay? Costs are increasing in the mainframe. In the past, the average has been 5% per year, but in 2023, just increased to 8%. And we don't know what's going to happen in the near future, but we have to be prepared. All of the customers, they're struggling with this cost, with this increasing, and these legendary platforms, they are not only legendary, but increasing the costs. And there are so many other factors that I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, please, because we need to understand several factors just beyond the financial impact. So the financial impact, when you're going to start a project of shifting your COBOL compute, the first thing you need to do is to analyze the impact of doing nothing. And doing nothing means not only the costs are increasing in the mainframe, you also need to check for what's going on things that are indirectly impacting your potential financials, which is the labor. It's also increasing. You know, specifically people with knowledge in these kind of legendary technologies. They're getting old. They're moving to other technologies. They are so the knowledge that you have in your applications, and it's embedded on this COBOL, and it's not going to be easy to maintain. And speaking about maintainability, that is going to give you an impact in your time to market, and probably also into your market share, because you're not going to be able to make modifications and update your applications at the pace that you want. So it's very important to see what is it going to happen if I do nothing, or what is it going to happen if I optimize the utilization of my resources in the mainframe. Okay. The risk is also very important. Let's make sure that we don't take a big bang going off of the mainframe. And in order to avoid that, this capacity to do the shifting COBOL, it's very powerful, because you will just cross-compile under the hood, within the inside of the mainframe, and you start running this under your control. So the good thing about the solution that we propose is that not only fully automated, but you can control at the level of a single COBOL module, start doing this kind of shifting. And so you control the impact, you control the blast radius of your modernization. Okay. Now it is true that there's some modernization momentum, like the capacity to shift from your expensive resources in the mainframe to less expensive resources in the mainframe, which is the SIP CPUs, will allow you to start doing some negotiations to save some money, and then start the process of self-modernization. At the same time, you are running already as Java. You know that the Java is reliable, but you also are increasing the number of modules that you're converting into a point in which you can tell, I potentially can go off of this technology and go to even less expensive technology. Can we take the next one, please? So first of all, how do we want to do this kind of projects? What we need to do is establish the success criteria. Okay, what is the minimum requirements that I need to comply with in order to move off of the status quo? I made an analysis, financial impact analysis. I know that I can lower my risk, and then I know that I have, the modernization capacity and the capacity to utilize these resources. Okay, what is the criteria? The criteria is typically going to be, I need to offload from the expensive CPUs to the less expensive CPUs, but how much? Okay. Then you also need to ensure that you have a proper baseline, which means what is my application initially, and what is the goal of that application? How do I want that to work in the future? Meaning I want to offload X% of the workloads into this new technology. And in the end, what I'm trying to do here is to optimize the utilization of resources. And we can help here customers with, and we've done in the past with things like the CloudFrame calculator that will allow you, with some few indicators, being able to calculate what is the savings that you're going to get in the near future, utilizing your resources to the best potential or possible level. Let's take the next one, please. Thank you, David. So how do we plan for a solid business case? Well, there's a lot of factors to take in consideration, and I'll go very quickly over most of them. So the strategic context is very simple. Where am I right now? Where do I want to go? Is my technology in the mainframe utilized to the best level? If it is not, how do I do that? And can I even increase that capacity on my SIP CPUs to get to the best utilization of my hardware? So that's an analysis that I need to do at the beginning, and also make sure that the high-level management is interested not only in the cost reductions, but also in other factors that like I mentioned, they can impact indirectly, like the time to market and things like that. Make an economical analysis of, already mentioned, do nothing versus do manual versus do fully automated. Take a look on the obstacles that you can find in the process, like lack of resources, lack of time, or maybe even lack of interest. People, they don't want any type of change and they want to keep spending a lot of money. Okay, let's keep the status quo. Okay, define a strategic goal. Do you have a compelling event? Do you have any specific events that are triggering your need to make this change and start, the savings and think on the long run on the self-funding modernization? Well, take that in consideration as part of your decision-making process. And finally, I think the operational impact is very important, and the business impact that you're going to have on this. So take in consideration your risks. You don't want to impact your organization, or the less possible. You don't want to impact the way the thing's been doing for many years. And in the end, put all these pieces together, define a big picture, and then decide if you want to take the next step, which is starting the process, right? Let's take the next slide, please. When you're going to start the process, the first thing you need to do is to make sure that you have the good candidates for a shifting. Now, in a word, what is a good candidate? I mean, there's a lot of technicalities there, but a good candidate is the one that is going to get the best out of the new or the target platform. Okay, so you've been running these legendary applications for 50 years already, and they perform fairly well. Maybe you've been fine-tuning, but you're still going to have to do some things maybe in the future. But you're going to swap technologies. You're going to start running in a new technology. So you need to make sure that these candidates that you're going to take there are going to get the best out of that technology. Okay. And I'm going to go deeper in the technical profile of these candidates in the next slide. But what I want to say here is that your solid business case is one word to describe what is a solid business case. Make it irrefutable. Okay, get the hard numbers that can demonstrate, and it's irrefutable that you're gonna get there. Okay. Make sure that you also have reliable and replaceable inputs. And what I say here with the inputs is that this has to be repeatable. You have to repeat the test maybe more than once to demonstrate that you're really getting consistent results during your tests. So let's take the next slide, please. So this is a very technical slide that I basically explain the different scenarios or types of applications that are good candidates for the new target environment. The target environment is going to be running Java, and Java has some capacities different to COBOL. I don't want to say better or not, just different. Particularly the way Java manages the memory. The language is actually very, very well known because of that. So if you optimize the utilization of the memory with Java, you can get very good results there. And these are just some examples of the scenarios that you can consider to get to your good candidates. Let's take the next slide, please. So how we do this? Next, please. So what we've done with the GFT already in several customers is basically run a full shifting process and test and convert that into hard numbers and results. Okay, the process of testing is very simple. You originally run as COBOL, then you automatically do the cross compile, and then you run as Java and finally compare. What do you compare? Well, you need to compare for variations. If there are any variations, you need to rerun the test. Well, fix and rerun the test, but this has to be automatically done as well. Then when you finally analyze the results and you get no variations, you'll be able to obtain the business case. And to obtain the business case, try to use some simplicity, the before and after. And this is a real scenario in which a customer, they had this process running in COBOL, consuming almost 22 seconds of elapsed time, which converted to money, it was about $350,000 for the execution of this process. And then as this was shifted to Java, what happened is that we reduced 68% the cost of this. And it's as simple as that, Can we take the next slide, please? We want to simplify the process for customers to be able to do it, to repeat it, and to increase the number of modules that they're going to be converting. The relocate process in detail looks like this. The goal is basically to run as COBOL, then do a migration process that can be automated. This is going to generate the Java automatically. The software development lifecycle remains the same. And then there's a runtime that will control the execution from the JCL and run and execute as Java in the SIP CPUs. And I can go deeper in further sessions if somebody wants to see this. We have previous webinars in which we described this process in further detail already. David, I think this describes what the solution does. Back to you here.
Thanks, George. Appreciate that. Several of the impacts that come from providing that type of solution into some of the customers that we work together are obviously the things that George pointed out: reduced MSUs. Obviously, the 4-hour rolling average for the usage of the GPP is there. That ultimately wants to result in a lower MLC, and it also creates white space, increase additional availability within the mainframe. So all of those economic factors are the impacts of shifting COBOL compute. So thank you for taking us through that, George. I want to transition now into maybe thinking about some real world experiences that our team has been through. So to join us on the call now is Tony, one of the global modernization leaders of GFT. Tony, if you could introduce yourself real quickly, then we'll get into kind of a discussion and a couple of different areas of how we approach projects.
Sure. Thank you, David. Hey, all. Tony Hermon. I'm in GFT. I'm in charge of modernization of mainframe. I'm a former IBM alumni, 22 years working in IBM, and also in the market for 37 in different aspects of IT related to software services, as well as outsourcing. Okay,
great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as we go through this, I'm going to have Alpesh and Pedro come back on and maybe address some of the questions here. I want to kind of talk about our experiences working together. We've been involved in several projects for major financial institutions, and I'd like to group maybe the discussion here around 3 different areas. Pre-project, right? How we identified things and what we were trying to accomplish, the actual execution of the project, when we were in getting our hands dirty and rolling up our sleeves, actually applying the technology, what we learned from that. And then after the project was over, analyzing the results that we have. And so if we talk through those, maybe as a group, we can think about, how we went about positioning these types of projects at our customers. What did we use to convince the management that this was a problem that was solvable for them? And then the application of the CloudFrame technology and the GFT expertise in the domain was the right approach for them. So maybe Alpesh, maybe you could discuss that with us. How we talk to management CIOs about that.
Exactly. So I think it all comes down to finding, one, the right person who's got the challenge or the vision for taking on the challenge. And 2, it's about having the conversation about what is possible, what's the art of the possible, given our experience of the wider marketplace, which our customers are always looking for us to bring to them, not just what we're doing within that particular customer, but what are you doing in the industry, and what are your other customers doing, and how can we learn from that? So we very much take that approach of giving our customers counsel, giving our customers advice, and through that natural conversation, we lent on to the discussion around the mainframe and about the partnership that we have with CloudFrame. And for us, it was a very natural and easy thing to do, which was to actually get everybody around the table. To discuss the mainframe itself and what was the art of the possible, and structure a plan that would accelerate some results, and commit behind that with a delivery team that was competent and capable of understanding how to navigate the complexity of the organization, but also how to yield the results that we did. And I think, as George has highlighted on one of the previous slides, it through a very quick cycle relative of activity, given the systems you're working on, we're able to yield a very substantial saving cost saving for this customer that enabled them to see the positioning. So from my perspective, it was, it's about leveraging our relationships. It's about having the discussion. It's about finding the right person, and then without fear and with courage, having the ability to structure a plan that showcases the ability to create results.
Great, thanks, Alpesh. Pedro, does the business case really play the vital role that I believe that it does? I mean, you're the one that's oftentimes talking about the business case with the client. Is that something that really is prominent within the projects that we do? Maybe George, you could take that.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks, David. I wanted to once again amplify something that Alpesh said, which was having the discussion, but in that discussion, understanding what the business outcome that the customer wants to achieve. Many times that's cost reduction, but it could also be increased flexibility by moving away from a legendary technology. It could be, a customer service initiative in which legendary technologies are hindering, advancements that the customer prospect can have with regard to, driving the customer experience into, a modern age. And so in all of those cases in which we're talking about the business outcome that the customer is looking for, the business case is always one of the places that we start. And we, GFT and CloudFrame, have some tools which we can use that we can apply to the business problem to provide guidance to customers on what we expect the business case and the timeline looks like in a very quick manner to be able to size up, the size of the prize.
Great, thanks, Pedro. Tony, you've been involved in several of these projects recently with CloudFrame. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit around the best applications to push through this type of project.
Yeah, well, although George already got into that matter, and in general, there are some typologies of best applications. It's all related to the cost, at least at first glance. Okay, so in understanding this, that means that at the first glance, what it's interesting is just to reduce the cost, and to reduce the cost is going to catch the most consuming applications on the system. Okay, so that means that it's also important to understand this, especially even in the early stages of POC projects. Okay, you may undertake with the customers. Locating these high consumers, that top 25 or 50, okay, it's going to provide us a very, very high, let's say, and fast result. That means that we are going to locate these ones, which are high consumers, and we are going to have, let's say, more straight and optimal business case when using the calculator Pedro has been referring at. Okay, this will be the first. And basically, from that point on, just to expand, if we undertake the projects, the first approach will be this one, and then the customer understands that this is a feasible solution and that it's going to provide a very short, long hanging fruit. Okay, so it's going to be fine just to undertake further applications. This will be the first approach. Okay. Good.
Thanks, Tony. So around the project and planning for it, in this initial stage, getting everyone involved, getting the management, the leadership of our customer involved, and making sure that they understand what we're going to do and how we're going to measure success, how we're going to start with the best candidates. We actually then progress into delivering on the project, delivering on the promise. And so I want to talk a little bit, maybe spend a couple of minutes here, and George, I'll pitch this one to you. What are some of the mistakes that people make when they're addressing these types of projects? And then what are the best practices of solving those? Maybe you can give us one example of that, of a mistake, and then how we bring corrective action to that.
No, that's a great point, because I think we've seen or we've heard about many stories in the market of people actually losing their jobs because they try to go very big, they try to go very ambitious, and then they didn't define the goal very clearly. So the first thing I recommend is try not to go very ambitious. Just define the specific, use cases, specific and very clear success criteria. Go to the hard numbers, and make sure that you have the good candidates. And Tony was just describing what are those good candidates. The ones that are going to be easier to basically decouple from your actual operations, end of stream jobs like end of month, end of day, or some reportings that you generate after the mainstream on your application. Those processes that are non-revenue generating that can be run separately, you can take off of the main stream and run separately. Some of them, they're going to be very high CPU consuming. You want to use those. And I already mentioned on the technical side, make sure that you're taking the best out of the Java and use sequential processing to optimize the memory and other resources that you will have there. So what I'd say, one of the common mistakes that I've seen also here is that going very deep into the numbers of the analysis. And you saw the little piece of Excel that we created for getting to the business case. If you try to go too deep on the cost analysis, you may not going to go, to good results. So be simple there.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that we're proud of the work that we've done together, GFT and CloudFrame teaming together at several projects. Maybe Tony and George, you could tell us a little bit about what that duration of project looks like. How quickly can we bring results to a customer?
I'll give the floor to you, George.
Thank you. So what we've seen in customers around the world, particularly the big enterprises, is that they have their mainframe managed by a third party. And that is a little complicated because, just getting the authorizations to make an installation, it's a little tough. I'd say we sometimes take 3 to 4 weeks to get the authorizations and the installation done. But then from there on, as we mentioned, this is fully automated process. We can get results in 2 to 4 weeks at the most after we get the installation done. So, the scenario that I just showed in the example, it took us 3 weeks to run this process and 2 more. And they all generated positive numbers in the terms of savings. And every time we get the possibility to get in touch with the customer, we also learn. And we learn specifics about their applications, but we also learn specific about their installation and their environments, and we apply that to the next environment. And so we're improving this installation process and this implementation process, and the automation from end to end is going just better every time.
Great. So it seems like. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to sorry. I just wanted to point out something that is very characteristic of the CloudFrame. It's all related to a concept which is typical from the project management profession, which is a low TCPI, which is the complete performance index. In other words, they are predictable. They are predictable projects that can be achieved without deviation. Okay, this is very important from the point of view of the customers. George already explained that very often we need to also to include third parties, and to these third parties also to add the complexities of different installations. Okay, we are talking about grantings, permissions to access DB2, the TCO, and all that stuff. But once everything is arranged, the time to complete is really predictable, which is a very good fact. Okay, because as George said, in a couple of weeks, if everything is correctly arranged previously, we can provide to the customer, we can provide real numbers and real results, which is a very important fact. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. So after we've delivered the project, we get to the end of it. and we're talking about, what we've accomplished and how we're measuring that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Alpesh, maybe this is something that you can shed some light on, is how we present those findings back to our customers and how they're received.
Yeah, I mean, to be going back to something we mentioned before, we're providing the customer with further options. I mean, this is a journey that we're taking the customer on. Transformation is no longer, a big monolithic piece of work. It's something which, in today's way of working and today's technology characteristics, something which is incremental. So at the end of the phase that the team have just articulated, the customer has options, right? They yield the results, they take the savings, and they report those back into the business if cost saving was the ultimate parameter that they were looking for. But in our experience, customers continue on a journey, and they continue on to understand where they can then take the benefits that they've yielded through the first iteration, and how they can start continuing on this potentially this cloud transformation journey, which somewhat seems to be a catalyst also for the Y move. So it's important for us as GFT that we have long-term customer relationships that are built on taking the customer through every part of transformation, and therefore some of our relationships are decades old. Because we're continuing that journey. So for us, it's important that after the results are yielded, it's about getting back to the table. It's about having the conversation. It's about providing options and continuing the journey.
Great. Thanks, Alpesh. I know that financially, we bring something to the table that's, I think very, affordable and very, on the money as far as, proving that there's ROI associated with it. But do our customers also look at TCO and whether this is an ongoing capability? You talked about coming back to the table, incremental, looking at the next projects and making sure that we're on a journey. Are they evaluating kind of their strategic approach to application modernization by this partnership and applying it long term? Alpesh, I guess that's a question for you.
Absolutely, they are, because as we've discussed before, it's the journey is not just a technological journey. They're learning how to work differently. They're learning how to operate as an end-to-end organization between business and technology differently. And so the evaluation continues, and the conversation continues, therefore, to try and take them into a much more holistic space where there is a new technology, a new way of working, a new world, a new skill set that's being harnessed and being developed in the organization. It's also important for GFT, as inherent is anything else, is the ability for the customer to be self-sustainable, way beyond any relationship with GFT. We want to transform and transfer, and therefore there is a knowledge transformation or transfer process that we will take the customers through as part of our life cycle of engagement as well. And the customers are really interested by that dimension of what they can get from us, from GFT. Obviously, with CloudFrame, they will continue to yield the benefits and continue to go on the transformation journey with you, and for perhaps for a lot longer. But so definitely all of the above you mentioned, David.
Great, thanks. I want to make sure that we get to questions from the audience, and so we have a couple, and I'll just kind of throw these out here. And Pedro, I'll address this one to you first. We're trying to get almost to the end of our presentation here, so I want to encourage you, if you do have questions, to go ahead and submit those. But we have a couple, and I'll kind of paraphrase these. One was addressed around data, and Pedro, I'll have you answer this one. What about the data associated with the applications? If we've identified a known application that we think is going to benefit from moving it off of the mainframe onto another platform like the cloud or Zip, what about the data that's associated with that application? Pedro?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, David. Thanks, David. What we see, or what CloudFrame does, is we really tackle the application logic, right? We leverage our relationship with GFT to transform that data into the end state, right? Data typically ends up being a more complex project, right? and what we're able to do in transforming the application logic in COBOL and getting that into Java and either deploying that to the cloud or, in Unix system services on the mainframe or any JVM, is that we're able to deliver immediate results, show incremental gains in the modernization journey, and then tackle the data as a phase 2 of the project. Many of our customers have addressed the modernization conundrum that way, and that way it allows them to demonstrate, results in a short time frame back to senior leadership, which then encourages the organization to continue to push along on the modernization journey.
Great, thanks. George, I'm going to send this one over to you. There was a question around maintaining the code after it's been converted to Java. Maybe you can address how that plays into our solution.
Oh, absolutely. That's a question that we get a lot. So the goal with the relocate solution that we have is basically to allow the customer to start utilizing the resources within the mainframe, which is running as Java. However, it's not meant to work in Java. It's not meant to maintain the Java. The classes that we store are generated in a way that they are very efficient to work on the SIP CPUs, but not necessarily very easy to maintain or very nice to maintain. We are, as mentioned, doing the less possible impact to the organization, and that is the developers, they can keep developing in COBOL. Now, is this the Java maintainable in the long run? Yes, it is, but that's not exactly the relocate solution. We have another solution, which is like the next level of relocate that will allow you to click a button and then generate maintainable Java. The same business logic classes on Java are going to be there, present, and managing exactly the same way the COBOL or as the COBOL. But then you have a maintainable Java that you can run in other platforms outside of the mainframe itself.
Great. Thanks, George. Thanks for clearing that up. Tony, from your experience, we had a question around, how much of the client staff is involved with the delivery of the project. So maybe you can address how we integrate into the existing supporting teams that are supporting the applications at the client side.
Well, the first I'd like to say that it's when we consider mainframe and we consider something else, okay, as an intention, the cloud. We need to involve different levels of the customers. That's the first is going to be whatever is related to development. This is one. The other one is going to be related to the production, and all of this, obviously, as we already explained, is the presence of very often with an outsourcer, which is going to be also an important part of the process, right? So initially, the structures of providing POCs or simple projects like a POT or POC, better POC, involve very not much, but it's a new kit in the block. That means that we are going to adapt just for a POC all the systems. Afterwards, if the customer wants to keep using a CloudFrame, we need to adjust different levels of the structures. If we talk about relocate, it's going to be something really automatic. Okay, so grantings is going to be basically what we're going to need. But if something is going to be like renovate, like George explained, there's going to be a different. I don't like to say impact, but implications on the different parts of the structure of the former mainframe, as it is not going to be longer a mainframe one. Okay, so that means a lot of different things: development, SDLC, whatever is related to the performance of the systems, delays, elapsing times, and so forth.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'm going to bring us to the end of our presentation today, and I'll have this here in case you're interested. We've put together some material around shifting COBOL compute, a nice little ebook that kind of goes through the entire process. So if you're interested in that, please just scan the QR code here. It'll take you to a landing page. You can download the material there. I want to thank our panelists today, Alpesh, Pedro, George, and Tony. I appreciate the time that you've given us today and taking us through how GFT and CloudFrame are partnering to bring results to our customers. So thank you very much for taking us through this today.